The bigger your job, the harder the problems get, more money is on the line, and more people are affected by what you do and decide. And the pressure to act, to just get something off of your to-do list, never goes away. It only gets worse. If you don't know how to handle and push back against that pressure, then it's going to be very costly for you, your team, and the impact you're trying to have. Of course, you're much more likely to make mistakes, to have a bad judgment in sensitive situations, but you're also more likely to risk missing opportunities that would be available to you that could make a huge impact if you'd just been able to notice them instead of rushing ahead with your kind of narrow view. So I'm going to teach you the skill that fixes this. It's called negative capability, and I'm pretty sure it's the most important leadership skill that you have never been taught. My name is Aah-ree-ah-neesha. I'm a leadership coach and an ordained Buddhist. Before becoming a full-time coach, I spent about a decade doing two things at once that you might not think would come together. So in my career, I was working in full-on roles in social and environmental impact, whether I was tackling poverty in London or trying to prevent deaths in our global supply chains. I was really required to make good, quick decisions because lives were genuinely at risk. We couldn't just mess around and take ages to come up with a plan. At the same time, those jobs also needed me to think with a more of a longer term view, trying to understand the root causes of problems so that we didn't spend all of our time just dealing with the symptoms. We really wanted to get in and be preventing these things from happening in the first place. So because I was influencing key people to move in a more helpful direction as well, it was also requiring me to draw a lot on my emotional intelligence skills, because as I'm sure you find in your own work, people don't necessarily do what you want, even if it's the most helpful thing for everybody. So yeah, I was spending all my time trying to come up with smart solutions to very complex problems. And yeah, it's hard. I can imagine it's hard for you too, whatever role you're in. So that was kind of one track of my life. And then there was this other. So I discovered Buddhism and meditation and mindfulness practices just after I graduated from the University of Cambridge in 2011. I was quite burnt out. I'll share another story about that at a different time. There's a few things going on there personally. But I don't know how I came up with this idea. Maybe I read something in The Guardian. But anyway, I Googled Retreats UK and I found this introduction to meditation and hill walking retreat up in Scotland. I thought my colleagues at the Cambridge Institute for Sustainable Leadership might think that was a little bit odd. I misjudged them on that. I'm sure they would have found it very interesting. But I didn't tell them that I was going to learn to meditate with these Buddhists that I didn't know. I just told them I was going off on this hill walking retreat, which sounded lovely. It was. But I went up there and yeah, I started learning how to work with my mind, that the mental states I woke up with weren't necessarily the ones I had to stay with all day. And my mind was a lot more malleable than I expected. I did also have quite a difficult time on that retreat because it was the first time that I realised how much I was struggling with some of my mental states as well. I experienced a lot of quite chronic anxiety at that time, and it was having bunch of physical symptoms as well. I started having IBS and back spasms too. But yeah, it kind of gave me these foundational tools for understanding how the mind works and beginning to kind of shape it, to mold it, I guess train it like you would be training a dog. I've got a puppy. He's a year old now. And yeah, our minds are very similar to puppies. They're just, they're just constantly kind of pulling habitually in these different directions. And it can often feel like, well, that our minds have a mind of their own, that we don't have much control over them. But yeah, I was learning these skills to help with that and to take back control of my mind and my mental states. And I got very involved with that from a young age. When I was 21, I trained for ordination for 7 years, was ordained in 2021, a decade later. I hope I got my dates right there. And ordination training is this very kind of supercharged training in working with your mind, in noticing the unhelpful habits that you can get caught up with in your mind, your communication, and your behavior, understanding how to catch those in the moment and effectively just make better choices. Yeah, make better choices in your personal life, in your work, just how you are day to day. There's a big focus on ethical practice as well, because that's giving us choices that are more helpful. So can you see how I had these two tracks? I had this professional career, very kind of full on, needing quick decisions as well as a strategic approach, and a high level, lots of pressure. I wouldn't say from my colleagues, but just I felt this pressure to really have an impact and get a lot done to really make a difference. So that's kind of out in the world. And then kind of behind the scenes in my mind, you had this whole kind of Buddhist life as well. And let go of whatever you think you know about Buddhism and meditation for now. You could just see it as a very thorough and practical guide in training your mind to make better choices that are more helpful for you and others and are more likely to get the results that you want. So I had those, and one of the things I found really interesting, particularly when I was on retreat, would be that when my mind was more settled, well, also when I was better rested, but then when my mind was settled, a bit like my experience of my mind is a bit like one of those snow globes, like you shake it, and it's all kind of like fizzy and you can't really see much. Like that's what my mind can feel like quite a bit of the time. But when I'm doing more meditation and mindfulness practices and just having a bit more space, that snow globe of my mind begins to settle and I can see things more clearly. So what I'd notice on retreat is that I could have these real insights into what was happening in my life and work, and I would leave with a lot of clarity and energy to go and do something a little, approach something a little bit differently, and that would normally have quite a positive effect. Whether that was how I was approaching working with an external stakeholder, or approaching a presentation that I needed to give that was very important, like whatever it was, there'd be some kind of like little moment of like, oh, that would be better. And it wasn't because I was looking at the problem directly or that question directly. It was normally like it would kind of almost feels like it sort of appears from the back of your mind. It's so curious, isn't it, how the mind works? Like, where do these thoughts in the shower even come from? Like, I'm sure there's neuroscience behind this. I'm often quite lazy around the science. My partner, he's a neuroscientist by background. He worked at King's College London. And so I often say I subcontract out all my scientific knowledge to him. But experientially, I imagine you have this, that, yeah, these thoughts, they just kind of pop up, don't they, from somewhere when we're not trying to tackle a situation head on. And I'm very, very curious about that. And at some point in these 15 years of being a Buddhist, someone else in my order mentioned this phrase, negative capability, that was apparently coined by John Keats the poet for the first time in the 1800s. I'm sure different cultures and frameworks have different words for these things, but my kind of take on it is this ability to not do, the negative capability, the ability to not move into action, to stay with ambiguity, to stay with uncertainty, so that a more elegant solution, a more helpful solution can emerge out of that space. And I'm sure intuitively, like that seems to make sense, doesn't it? Like when we're not rushing, we can just kind of see we can see the bigger picture. And last year, I had a very difficult time last year. My dad died at the beginning of 2025 after a rapid decline from stage 4 lung cancer. And it was really, really, truly awful. One of the most horrendous experiences of my life. And afterwards, I was not thinking my best thoughts, wasn't working at the level I was used to. And I wasn't critical of myself. I understood why that was, I had a lot of grace for it. But I wanted my old self back, I wanted the version of me back who could be thinking very clearly and have a lot of energy. And I had a bit of a kick to get back to that version of me, or to this new version of me on the other side of losing my dad. And when I got a bit of bad feedback, well, it was constructive feedback from a workshop in Cambridge which someone described as woolly without clear takeaways. Other people really liked it and they told me that. But yeah, this one person didn't take so much. And initially I felt that kind of humiliation you get that kind of goes up your back. Oh, I felt hot and awful. I could feel myself flush just reading it. But I then took a breath and realized, actually, I think I do agree with them there. You know, I wasn't delivering at the level I was used to. So, you know, I've been trying to find creative, smart solutions to complex issues for like the entirety of my career. But that period really got me to focus in on like what actually really works. And I found myself having a number of conversations with my clients about this too. One, he's a charity CEO. She was finding it difficult to switch off from work, and I realized she just needed to learn how to, like, the process of actually getting your mind to turn away from work. Like, we had been exploring whether it was a mindset thing or she needed to delegate more, or all of that. You know, some of that could help, but it was like literally, how do you stop your mind from thinking about work when you're off for a walk so that you can rest, which means that when you come back to thinking about work, you have more, you know, you've got more energy and mental capacity. And another conversation we had around where does she think her best thoughts, she said, sometimes I just need to lie down on the floor and stare up at the ceiling, which of course she doesn't feel she can do being a CEO in the office. So then we shaped her work so that she was having more Fridays at home to do some of her bigger thinking as well. So yeah, this year I've just got really interested, maybe like the last 18 months, but like particularly interested in negative capability, what actually works within our busy lives. So I used to go off on retreat pretty frequently. I was off probably every few months, at least for a weekend, going off on 2-week-long retreats. The longest I've been on was 4 weeks, 4-week silent meditation retreat in Devon, well over a decade now. My life just hasn't had that shape for a while. It can be quite difficult as a founder to feel like you can create the space, even if it would be very helpful for you. I've also got a dog. There's my dad stuff was going on too. So I've not had the conditions for a while to go on these longer retreats. So I've really had to look at what works for me and for my clients in the midst of quite full-on lives. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you over the series. So in the next video, I'm going to be sharing 3 simple things you can do, even on your really busy days, to help develop negative capability so that you can have a sharp and fresh mind and bring your full attention to the problems that really deserve that from you. So I'll catch you in the next one.